Hello everyone, welcome into Fatty's Feast, where we make the best food you'll ever eat without leaving your backyard. My name is Josh. This video is part 3 of 4 of how to cook a brisket. We're gonna be looking at when to wrap, when to take it off, and how to rest it. So let's get started. I'm not gonna lie, that intro took about 5 minutes to do because I am exhausted. It's currently 3:30 in the morning. My neighbors probably absolutely hate me. As usual, the cook did not go as I planned. I said it was gonna be about a 12-hour cook. We're on hour 13. So yeah, it's going great. Now, once again, this is part 3 of 4. So if you haven't checked out part 1 or 2, I'll put a link here and in the comments so you can go back to those. Part 1 is all about prepping the brisket, the trimming, the seasoning, all that good stuff. Part 2 is all about the first half of the smoke, getting that good smoke flavor on your brisket, what you need to do, maintaining temps. But right now we're talking about wrapping and what we're looking for, so let's dive in. So as we open this bad boy up, we got a beautiful bark on our brisket here. As we look at it, it looks like a giant meteorite. It looks amazing. It's shrunk in size a lot since we actually put it on. Our tallow has rendered down very nicely. I'm just gonna take this, lift it up, drain off that fat. If we look at the bottom here, nice and moist. Nothing's burned so far, so that's really good. But we have great bark on this thing. It's about time to wrap. Now, a lot of people talk about temps when they're about to wrap. So right now we have 178 in the point, and then in a flat we have 163. But that's not all I'm looking for. I'm looking for a nice bark across the brisket itself. I'm putting my finger in here. I'm seeing if the fat gives at all, which it's sort of giving, especially on this side in the point. Down here, not so much in the flat, but that's okay. But I'm making sure the seasoning's sticking. I'm making sure we have no wash off of that. Right here, great fat render. And you're really making sure that the fat gives like a piece of jelly or something. Like right there is perfect. I love that. There's really no perfect time to wrap. It's all about when your brisket looks just like this. If you have good color, good bark built up, the seasoning sticking, it looks great, that's when you want to wrap. So let's talk about what to wrap your brisket with. I prefer butcher paper. You can find this on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. I like butcher paper because it'll allow the brisket to breathe, whereas foil will really ruin that bark and it'll keep all the juices in. There's nowhere for them to go, so it'll just sort of wash it all off. Butcher paper, you can't go wrong because it'll allow the juices to sort of seep out while maintaining that bark. So let me show you how I wrap my briskets. So I'm gonna roll this out just like so. I'm gonna take my brisket and I'm gonna put it fat side down. I just want to take another internal temp of this. 164, 185. All right, we're in good shape. I'm going to take some of my beef tallow. I'm just going to pour it over the brisket. Here we go. The reason I'm doing it fat side down is because the fat side already has enough fat, so we don't have to worry about the beef tallow. And then what I'll do is just wrap it over like this. And then I sort of fold this in like so. I want to get this nice and tight. Fold it over again. Once again, nice and tight. So now we're fat side up. We'll fold it again, or flip it again, I should say. So now we're fat side down again. And at this point, because I know where I'm going to end, I'm going to cut it right about here. I'm going to just tuck this in nice and tight, just like so, and then flip it again. And then here we go, fat side up, we're good to go. And then when I put it back on the smoker, I'm going to do flat side toward the firebox because we want to tenderize that a little bit more. And I should note the reason I folded this way is because you can take it off easier and you don't have to worry about getting your hands stuck in grease or anything like that. So flat side toward the fire, we're good to go. So now we're at the point where we're gonna have our temperatures about 275 to 300 degrees. We're just gonna finish this cook off. It shouldn't take too much longer. I'm guessing about 2 hours or so. And the great thing about right now is we don't have to worry about a dirty fire. We can burn the dirtiest fire we want. The brisket's wrapped. It's not gonna absorb any more smoke flavor. We're good to go. But of course, when you're burning a hotter fire, you tend to have a cleaner fire. So That's what sort of sucks about this stage of cooking, is you always have a clean fire when you really don't need one. So I'll maintain temps between 275 and 300 degrees, and I'll check back when we reach an internal temp of 200 degrees. All right, so we're just about 15 hours in. It's about 5 a.m. I have literally gone through the stages of being sober, being drunk, drinking beers, having shots, doing barbecue, and now I'm having coffee. I did not think this cook would go as long as it has, but that's what barbecue is all about. You just gotta give it time. You don't want to take your barbecue off too early because it's not gonna be as good. And that's something you have to account for. Honestly, you can't go by an hour per pound or any kind of equation like that. Like I said, this was a 12.12 pound brisket. I cut probably 3-ish pounds off, and I'm just really overtired, but it's, like I said, it's been 15 hours. So it is what it is. Coffee's so good. All right, let's take a look at what we're working with. So we've been maintaining temps around 275 to 300, trying to speed this cook up a little bit. As I grab the brisket, I'm just sort of looking for tenderness. Still a little firm. Still got the flat pointed toward the firebox. I've been temping this thing pretty often. 188 here in the flat and 189 in the point. So we're on a good track right now. Just going around in these pre-designated holes. 185 in the middle. Right here is pretty soft, which I like, but it's still 189. I'm looking at trying to get a temp of 206. And as I feel this thing, I'm just basically looking to see if it folds in my hand, which it's really not. It's still pretty firm, so I know it's not done yet. And also, when I stick this probe in, even though I've been probing the same spots, I still feel a little bit of resistance, so we know this isn't done yet. And what I am going to do, just as a gauge, is I'm going to put a probe right in the middle here. This isn't the end-all be-all, but I want to sort of have a gauge so I can probe when I think I need to. Once that gets up to about 200, I'm going to start probing every 15 minutes or so. Now, even though the sun's coming up and I've been out here all day and I'm drinking my coffee and I'm really overtired, this is what barbecue's all about. You know, I'm just enjoying myself. I'm out here having a good time, and you can't rush anything. You know, barbecue is all about taking a shit cut of meat like a brisket, which is, it's not shit, you know, it's just not a desirable cut of meat, and just taking it and making it something amazing. So that's always something to keep in mind. You always want to plan for the fact that something may go wrong. You might not cook it as fast as you want to. I've had 16-pound briskets done within 12 hours, and I've had, like right now, 12-pound briskets that aren't done in 16 hours. So it's really sort of a give or take sort of thing, and you really don't know what's going to happen. So don't use that whole hour per pound or 90 minutes per pound rule too closely, because you don't know what's going to go on. Like I said, coffee's really, really good. So I will check back when we are ready to take this thing off, and I will show you what I look for when we take the brisket off. All right, everyone, the sun is up. It's a new day. We're feeling great. I'm extremely tired. As you can see, I already showered, changed my clothes, put on some new, fresh athletic shorts because basically I'm a train wreck. Don't have my hat on because it smells like shit, but our brisket is finally done at 6:20 in the morning. We put it on at 2 p.m. and now it's 6:20. So let's take a look. All right, so I'm gonna take my temperature probe out. We got juices oozing out of the center there. That's a good sign. I'm gonna take a few internal temps where I already poked holes. So we are 208 in the flat. And then in the point, we are 202. I'm just poking around. It feels like butter. So temperature shouldn't be the only thing we're gauging doneness with. If I take the brisket and hold it in my hand like this, it's pretty pliable. We got juices just oozing out the bottom there, as you can see. And if I hold it here, right in the middle, it feels like it's just loose. So we're looking at feel, and that's how the best pit masters in the world check for doneness, basically by feel. And this thing is beyond done. It's been on for 17 hours and it's shrunk in size considerably, you know, thinking about where we actually came from originally. So one of the most overlooked but important parts of cooking a brisket is the resting period. And I'm gonna show you how I rest my briskets. It's probably not the way you're gonna be able to do it, but I will explain alternatives as we go along. All right, so I'm gonna put this guy on a baking tray, and this actually fits very perfectly. And then what I have down here are warming trays because I'm loaded. Or my house just came with them, you know, either or. So I'm gonna put this in a warming tray. I have this on the moist setting, and I'm gonna set the temperature to 150 degrees. Now I'm gonna let this rest until probably about 6 o'clock tonight. I'm gonna have this for dinner. I was planning on having it for lunch, but life happens and the cook took way longer than I thought it would. Now, like I said, resting your brisket is one of the most overlooked things while cooking a brisket. The best briskets I've ever made have been rested as long as I possibly can. Now, if you're not loaded like me, which I'm not, and you don't have warming trays, a cooler will do just fine. What I recommend is resting your brisket in air in room temperature until it gets to about 180 degrees internal, and then you can wrap it in butcher paper and a towel and put it in a cooler and it'll stay fine for a while. The more towels you put in there, the better off you're gonna be and the better your temps will maintain. And you can keep a brisket in a cooler for a long amount of time. Now, what I may do in a few hours is just put a probe in the brisket to make sure the warming trays are keeping temperature. But what I found is that I trust these warming trays even though they're like 40 years old, they work just fine. Now, I always say rest your brisket if you can between 8 and 12 hours. That's gonna render the best results. If you don't have that kind of time, that's completely understandable, but I wouldn't rest your brisket for any less than 2 hours. And I found if I just take my brisket off and don't put it in a cooler, don't put it in a warming tray or anything, 2 hours basically gets it down to a food safe temperature about 140 degrees. Keep in mind you don't want anything going under that temperature or otherwise you will run the risk of getting sick. And once again, the longer you rest, the better your brisket's gonna be. But we have one more thing, our delicious beef tallow. So this might end up being a mess, but I'm gonna take a mason jar and a strainer, and I'm just gonna pour what we have into this mason jar. And there we go. Some nice smoked beef tallow we can use in a later date. And we can just put a cap on this. It's nice and hot. We can throw it in the fridge. Don't pay attention to this date, that's not accurate. This is gonna solidify down into some smoky goodness that we can use whenever we feel like. And then the rest of this fat we can just pretty much throw out. There's nothing we're really gonna do with this. It's rendered down over 17 hours as much as we're gonna get it to. So that's good. But anyway, that's part 3 of 4 of how to cook a brisket. I hope I helped you guys in your barbecue journey today. If I did, please like this video, get my content out to more people. Be sure to comment if you have any suggestions, do you have any ideas on things I did or things you do. I want to hear from you guys. I'm extremely tired, so I'm about to go to bed, but before I do that, click here for part 4. The final installment in this series is all about how to cut your brisket for serving. You're gonna wanna watch that because there is a little bit of science and effort that goes into that. Over here, I got my Smoker Cooks playlist. You wanna check that out. It's hours of entertainment and smoking and all that good stuff. Right in the middle, you can subscribe to Fatty's Feast. And I'm gonna go pass out because it's 7 a.m. if I can. I don't know, we'll see what happens. But until next time, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay tubby.